This week, I had the lovely privilege of watching Encounter, and if you do not like bugs, if you are squeamish, then I apologize, but this is not for you. But for those of you who think you might be able to handle it, this is maybe one of the weirdest movies I've seen in quite some time. Encounter is an Amazon Prime Video film that follows Malik, played by Riz Ahmed, as he takes his two sons on a rescue mission to avoid a microscopic inhuman attack on human beings. But what we later find out is that while Malik is trying to protect his sons from these parasitic aliens, he may pose a greater threat to their safety than what he thinks he's running from. Because I can't really talk about this movie without some spoiler of the plot, I'm just gonna put this bland spoiler warning here and give it a couple seconds because there's just some stuff I can't talk about. I won't detail any specific events in the film, but some of the film's mystery might be given away by what I'm saying, so want that to be up front. Well, this film is mainly like a psychological thriller. It is infused with a lot of horror elements that are really amplified by the film's focus on mental illness and psychological disorders in the way that it explores how Malik and those around him experience those things. It's a film where a lot of it relies on the viewer paying close attention. This is not one I can recommend just like throwing on in the background because you're gonna miss a lot of what's going on, because even some very what seems to be at first non-consequential conversations end up revealing a good portion of the plot that are then clues to figure out where is this character coming from, is he telling the truth, and things like that. And a lot of that mystery, I have to give props to Riz Ahmed. He is amazing in this movie, and I feel like that's something, because this film is so kind of odd, that people aren't going to be able to see his performance. But Riz Ahmed plays a former Marine who has been off on a secret mission, and he's now coming to see his sons for the first time in 2 years. But his performance, both with the boys as a father who somewhat wants to be like nothing has changed, but obviously has to recognize that he's been gone for a long time. There's just a lot of layers to his performance that I think make this one really, really interesting. I also feel like because this movie hasn't been properly marketed, or I haven't really seen it promoted anywhere other than to critics who have received screeners or gone to early showings of this, I just feel like I would recommend that you watch even a small portion of this to see Riz Ahmed's performance if that is something you're interested in, because I really do think it's one of the better performances of this year. I just am sad because I know that the rest of the movie might cover that awesome performance. One person who I thought had a good performance but who was completely underutilized was Octavia Spencer. With a name as big as Octavia Spencer, I would be expecting her to be in like at least 50% of the movie, and while I feel like her supporting role also adds a lot of complexity to the story and really does make you question what would you do in this same situation, I really do feel like she wasn't put in the movie enough. And now that I think about it, I'm like, she's been in so many movies where she's like the main supporting character, yet we never get enough screen time with her. So I just wanted to put it out there that why are there not more movies with Octavia Spencer? Hollywood, please fix yourself and give that to us. Back to kind of the plot and why I feel like I can't talk about it without at least spoiling a little bit. So much of this film hinges on the mystery of whether the narrator is reliable or not. And by narrator, I mean the main character, who I would say the main character of this film is Riz Ahmed, but I would argue that the protagonist is actually his son Jay, because if you look at like kind of what a protagonist is supposed to do in a movie, they're supposed to have an arc and change. And at the beginning, Jay really just is desperate for his dad to come home. He doesn't like his stepdad. He wants his dad to return, have their family be reunited, and his life to go back to normal. But over the course of the film, he learns a lot and is very much, again, put in the position of the viewer, which I think is what makes a great psychological thriller, is having characters that the viewer can like really insert themselves in and be like, where would I be in this situation? Like, how would I feel? And I think that much like his son Jay, throughout the film, we as an audience become very disillusioned with this character who we initially thought was, doing something extremely heroic. And we later find out that maybe, and I keep saying maybe because I don't want to give away the plot, maybe he's not completely telling the truth, or he's not telling the objective truth and is really kind of just in his own world and own mind about things. I also think there's a lovely tension placed by not just having this be a father and a son, where the son can really be the main character and we're just really in his perspective the whole time, but by the shifting perspectives of dad and son, because sometimes we're left with Jay and his little brother Bobby, but sometimes we are with Malik, and that is what honestly really keeps you going throughout a lot of the movie is the fact that you have been with each of them alone, but as more and more events start to progress in the movie, you think back to those moments where they were the only character on screen and wonder, is this being accurately portrayed to me? And that's what I mean by the unreliable narrator. But back to the tension, a lot of that is added because Jay has a little brother, Bobby, who is also along for this road trip adventure, or what Malik calls it. And he is hilarious. That child is so talented and so funny. I don't know, the humor really worked here with the kids, and that played really well for me. And I think Bobby is just someone that, as the film progresses, the concern, even though Jay is still a young boy, transitions onto Bobby and protecting not only his safety, but his image of his father. And I like that that is kind of how Jay's character arc progresses over the course of the movie. I think the movie had a very interesting use of sound at some times, especially with the transition of sound bridges with like creepy crawly things or really intense like violins that were very horror-esque. I think it worked great. It really added to the tension. But then there were other times, especially this being somewhat of a road trip movie, where we're listening to the radio and some of the songs, specifically the Selena Gomez one, like I myself do love Selena Gomez, but the one Selena Gomez song just felt so out of place, and some of the cuts of sound were just so abrupt that I was sort of like, I don't know if this is adding to the story or distracting from it. So that was something I just felt I had to mention. Again, I think there's some really interesting things being done, and this is definitely a movie that takes a lot of risk with its sound design, but I don't know if they all paid off. I think this is a movie that has so many psychological twists and so much that I didn't see coming that I really feel like it's one that's going to stick with me for a while. I completely understand why others wouldn't like this movie, and I do think like if it weren't for the shorter runtime and the pretty succinct pace that this movie does have, I don't know that it would hit with a lot of people. It is extremely reminiscent at times and on the outset to Close Encounters of the Third Kind and Interstellar, and by the end, the movie shifts to a completely different type of movie, but I still think it's a lot of clever work. Again, it's not a movie I'm gonna rewatch. It's by no means a comfort movie. I did want to really dissect this one, even though it's sort of past the embargo and the movie's been out to the public for a while, because it's one I think is gonna get lost in the more Oscar baity and obvious nomination type films, and I wanted this to be given its due, not only just for Riz Ahmed's performance, but just for being a film that's different. I think this is one that's gonna go by the wayside because it's almost too different, and I just think this is the beauty of streaming, is we can have movies like this on Amazon Prime, potentially pick up a couple nominations for something in the awards, and then go on with its day. But have you seen Encounter? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, if you enjoyed this review, please be sure to give me a thumbs up in the comments and consider hitting subscribe so that you don't miss these reviews or any of the other entertainment and TV related content that I make on this channel. Have an absolutely amazing day, and I will see you all in my very next video. Bye, y'all.